Will Smith, Kevin Kline and Salma Hayek.
That was fun.
Wild Wild West, 8:30 Saturday on 9.
This program proudly brought to you by The Day After Tomorrow. Where will you be? In cinemas now.
From National 9 News, this is Nightline with Hugh Remington.
Joanne Lees heads home after admitting she had a secret lover. Bizarre double murder, a couple's bodies hidden for up to a year. And evidence hitmen have infiltrated Victoria's witness protection program. Good evening. Also in the news tonight, the federal government rules out gay and lesbian marriages. And a warning, most Australian heart failure patients are not getting the right drugs. But first, Joanne Lees is on her way home to England tonight after another extraordinary day of evidence in the case against Bradley John Murdoch. She arrived in Singapore this evening on a brief stopover and is expected back in London tomorrow. In court earlier today in Darwin, Lees was forced to admit that during her stay in Sydney, she cheated on her boyfriend Peter Falconio, now presumed murdered, with a secret lover known only as Nick.
Only last week under oath, Joanne Lees told the court she had been enjoying a dream holiday with her boyfriend Peter Falconio before he went missing in July 2001. But defence lawyer Grant Algie claims the prosecution and Ms Lees painted a picture of a harmonious, loving relationship between the backpackers that was not all it appeared to be. Mr Algie pulling that picture to pieces, revealing Ms Lees' best-kept secret. During the time you were in Sydney living with Peter, he asked, you had an affair, a sexual relationship, for a period of weeks with Nick. Yes or no? I'm going to answer yes, said Joanne, but I wouldn't class it an affair or a relationship. But she did admit that after leaving Sydney with Peter Falconio, she'd made suggestions to Nick by email that they meet in Berlin. Her evidence in the committal against Bradley Murdoch then complete. And the man who rescued Joanne on the side of the Stuart Highway took the stand. Vince Miller recounting he stopped his truck just before Barrow Creek after a woman jumped in front of him. I heard some lady yelling, help, help, and she threw herself at me. Rodney Adams, also in the truck that night, said Joanne was shocked and disturbed and just kept saying, Peter, Peter. He told the court the night Peter Falconio went missing was cold and black. There wasn't a star, it was just a dead night. The committal continues tomorrow. Bethany Jensen reporting for Nightline.
A woman continues to be questioned by police tonight over the murder of an elderly couple in Sydney's southwest. It's believed they died up to a year ago, their bodies being hidden inside their house.
The remains of the victims were found after relatives living in England phoned police to report their concerns for the couple's welfare.
Just that they hadn't seen or heard from the people for some time.
Police arrested a 42-year-old woman believed to be the couple's daughter. She continues to be interviewed. An early forensic examination of the house indicates the victims have been dead for between 8 and 12 months.
Police have arrived and spoken to a resident of the address, and they've then found skeletal remains of 2 bodies.
Police believe whoever killed the couple went to extraordinary lengths to conceal the horrific crime, maintaining the front garden and using a silicone gun to seal ventilation holes and any other cracks to stop odours from alerting neighbours. It's believed a post-mortem will confirm the couple was stabbed to death, with police locating a knife wrapped in paper inside the house. Adam Walters reporting for Nightline.
The reputation of Victoria's police force has taken another blow with fresh attempts to kill a police informer who's under witness protection. There are calls for an independent inquiry with warnings the attempted murder will scare people off from giving information to police.
It was meant to be a secret address known only to a handful of people, but several days ago, 2 men armed with shotguns arrived at a house in Queensland with a clear goal in mind. 9 News believes that when a police informer living there answered a knock at the door, one of them opened fire. Miraculously, the man escaped injury and ran to the back of the house, where he was confronted by a second gunman. Again, he fled unharmed.
I think it's another disturbing revelation that
there appears to be material information leaking either through WITSEC or from some other body associated with the police department.
It's the second attempt on the informer's life in 2 years. In 2002, the Wide for Sound Supergrass was shot between the eyes as he walked into Michael Goldman's Hampton flat. Goldman later testified that he pulled the trigger because feared underworld figure Nick the Russian Radev ordered him to. Today, Goldman was sentenced to 14 years jail, Justice Robert Redlich saying police informers provide a critical and invaluable service to the community. But Rob Starry believes this latest incident may scare potential informers away.
Yeah, look, I think it can only have an adverse effect, and this issue needs to be sorted out quickly.
Mr Starry acted for murdered police informer Terence Hodson, who was murdered 2 weeks ago. He'd been offered a place in witness protection, but refused. In a written statement, Victoria Police said it had full confidence in the witness protection program and that the welfare of those involved was of paramount importance. Darren Lunny for Nightline.
The Prime Minister has tonight defended the government's move to ban gay and lesbian marriages in Australia. Mr Howard says the legislation will also stop people in same-sex relationships adopting children from overseas, but it will allow them the same superannuation rights as heterosexual couples.
John Howard holds strong views about the role of marriage as one of the central pillars of society. But he's determined to ensure that while gay marriages may now be legal in some countries, they won't be recognised in Australia.
We're just making certain that what most people believe a marriage is, that is a union for life between a man and a woman, is definitely the law of this country. That's all we're doing.
Legislation to that effect is now being rushed through the Parliament.
Australia will not recognise same-sex marriages entered into under the laws of another country, whatever that country may be.
While church leaders have welcomed the move, there's been an angry response from gay rights groups.
This is, an attempt by Howard to win votes using homophobia, and I think it's going to backfire on him because the majority of Australians do support legal equality and justice for gays and lesbians.
But the opposition has made it clear it's not about to pick a fight over the issue.
And we're not going to get hot under the collar about a piece of legislation which is just confirming the existing law.
The Prime Minister denies he's offended by homosexuality and rejects suggestions the new law will discriminate against gay couples.
It's not discriminating against them, it is discriminating in favour of an institution which is basic to the cohesion of our society.
The legislation will also prevent gay couples from adopting children from overseas. But in a move which has been generally welcomed, the government has agreed that people in same-sex relationships should have the same rights as other couples to access their partner's superannuation.
We have been working with the gay and lesbian community for many years towards this reform. It's fantastic that the government has moved.
We will certainly support the superannuation changes. We'll certainly continue to oppose the Marriage Act changes.
Laurie Wilson reporting for Nightline.
Accused terrorist Jack Roche has told a jury he was afraid of being killed if he hadn't carried out a surveillance mission for Al-Qaeda. During his second day on the witness stand in Perth, the convert to Islam broke down and cried.
Jack Roche admits spending about 2 weeks in an Al-Qaeda camp in Afghanistan and meeting Osama bin Laden. But he denies being told to bomb the Israeli embassy in Canberra. Today he said he'd returned to Australia having agreed only to watch the embassy, gather information about Jewish businessman Joe Goodnick and try to recruit members for an Al-Qaeda cell. Jack Roche filmed Israel's diplomatic missions in Canberra and Sydney. He said he wanted to stop but was afraid of both Jemaah Islamiyah and Al-Qaeda. I suspected they would kill me, he said. I was shocked, to say the least. Jack Roche was telling the jury the experience had left him shattered when he broke down in tears and had to take a break from the witness box. The one-time Jemaah Islamiyah member said Abu Bakr Bashir summoned him to Indonesia for a meeting and soon afterwards, in a phone call, told him to stop what he was doing. Roche said he'd already fallen out with JI bosses in Perth and had called ASIO seeking a meeting. He'd heard nothing for more than 2 years when agents raided his South Perth flat. Mark McGill reporting for Nightline.
A 21-year-old Sydney medical student accused of taking terrorist training is tonight free on bail. The judge ruled Izzah al-Haq is not a risk to the community, but he still must report to police 3 times a week.
Since his arrest last month, he's been kept under the tightest security. Today, Izhar al-Haq went from one of Goulburn Jail's Supermax cells to the suburbs, his family posting bail of $200,000. The medical student first came to the attention of police when he returned from a trip to Pakistan late last year. They say he was carrying letters he'd written to his parents before leaving to train with Lashkar-e-Toiba, which is now classified as a terrorist organisation. The letters said he wanted to be a martyr fighting for Kashmir and asked his family to not be very sad or cry or get angry. Jihad is another name of sacrifice. He was fed up with Westerners and their animal-type lifestyle. But today his supporters portrayed him as a mixed-up, naive young man having difficulties at university who felt he was a burden to his parents.
He is a very placid young man and he certainly doesn't deserve to be in maximum security.
They say he only trained for 3 weeks before changing his mind.
At least he has realized that he was thinking of doing wrong and he withdrew from there.
After 3 hours of argument, the judge found al-Haq is not a flight risk and is not accused of posing any threat to Australian society. He'll now live with his parents and return to his studies while awaiting trial. Layla McKinnon reporting for Nightline.
Meanwhile, one of Britain's best-known Muslim identities is in jail tonight awaiting transfer to the United States on so far secret charges apparently related to terrorism. The Egyptian-born cleric Abu Hamza al-Masri became a figure of loathing in Britain when he dismissed the September 11 attacks as a Jewish plot and claimed the invasion of Iraq was a war against Islam.
Sealed off and surrounded by police, Abu Hamza's home in a leafy West London road was this morning being searched by anti-terrorism officers. They'd pounced at 3 o'clock this morning after receiving an extradition request from the Americans. Many bemused residents were unaware that one of Britain's most reviled Islamic extremists was living in their midst. The authorities have long sought to expel the controversial cleric. His extremist views preached outside Finsbury Park Mosque every Friday, forced to pray in the street after the mosque was shut down. So far, efforts to detain or expel him have failed. Today, many were welcoming news of his arrest.
I'm pleased he's leaving the country. I can't comment on the American reasons for wanting him extradited, but in Britain he's fomented hatred against this country and against what we stand for too long, frankly. And he was only not deported, one hears, because of the thicket of laws and legal defences he put up.
Earlier this year, I challenged Abu Hamza to condemn those plotting attacks on Britain.
No, terrorism is a broad thing. If you yourself cannot define it, I'm not going to define it for you.
Would you condemn a bomb attack?
I would say, as we always been say, the people who oppose the war, they deserve nothing but being thanked.
Such inflammatory comments have appalled the vast majority of British Muslims for years.
The US, meanwhile, has raised its terrorist alert, increasingly convinced that Al-Qaeda is planning a major attack in the next few months. Robert Penfold reports security officials have released photos of 7 terrorists they believe are running the plot.
These days, the American government tells it straight, realising there's no good way to deliver bad news.
This disturbing intelligence indicates Al-Qaeda's specific intention to hit the United States hard.
The intelligence is from intercepted messages that leaves nothing to the imagination. The information's so precise, the FBI even named possible targets. Independence Day celebrations, the big political conventions, and name names.
Adnan Shukri Tumo has been mentioned by...
7 altogether. Most have done Al-Qaeda training, and some are American citizens and probably already in the US. And now they're looking for a different type of terrorist. Al-Qaeda has apparently tried to recruit people who look like Europeans, and some may be travelling with children as a family group to make them even less obvious. This current threat isn't restricted to America. Warnings too to allies such as Australia that attacks could happen anywhere.
We need the public, both in the United States and, I'll emphasize, overseas, to be on the lookout for these 7 individuals.
In Los Angeles, Robert Penfold reporting for Nightline.
Amid all the trouble in the world, some good news tonight with the signing of a peace accord promising to end Africa's longest-running war. More than 2 million people have died in southern Sudan in a war now into its third decade. Millions more have been forced into refugee camps. The war has been characterised by the deliberate use of famine by the Islamic regime in the north and the resurrection of the ancient slave trade. The peace deal does not affect a separate war in western Sudan on the border with Chad, where 1 million people are currently at risk in what the UN says is the world's most acute humanitarian crisis. Heart disease is more likely to kill us than any other single thing. So here tonight is some bad news. Australian experts have found that 70% of heart failure patients are not being treated with the best available drugs. Here's Cheryl Taylor.
63-year-old Dennis Woolley's heart failure hit him a few weeks ago with palpitations, breathlessness and dizziness.
I never had anything like it before, just frightened the daylights out of me.
His specialist prescribed Toprol XL, just made available on the pharmaceutical benefit scheme.
I feel a lot better. My heart palpitations are nearly all gone now. Whether I had the problem, I still don't have any trouble breathing.
Heart failure patients often have dangerously fast-beating hearts because too much adrenaline is pouring into the cardiac muscle. Toprol XL is in a group of medications called beta blockers, which block the adrenaline. Global trials proving they reduce death rates when added to existing heart treatment. But Sydney University's Dean of Medicine says it's alarming. Over 70% of heart failure patients are not given beta blockers.
Every international committee and national guidelines that's looked at the issue has come down strongly in favour of use of beta blockers.
It seems many current GPs were taught as students that beta blockers might not be suitable, but they haven't moved in line with mounting evidence that new types of beta blockers should now be frontline treatment. The problem is twofold. Australians themselves are generally complacent about this growing problem, and with many doctors reluctant to prescribe what's considered the best treatment, experts say is costing lives.
The challenge is to make sure that we get the change faster than historically normally happens for new treatment.
Cheryl Taylor for Nightline.
And ahead on Nightline, a growing death toll from floods in the Caribbean. And a thrill seeker's maiden jump ends in a tangle.
You recall what you said about how polar melting might disrupt the North Atlantic current? Yes. Well, I think it's happening.
The hail, the tornadoes, it all fits.
It's happening all around the world.
The day after tomorrow.
The keyword is contemporary with Harvey Norman's hot sofa deals. The Cadillac 4-seater, big on lush sofa style, grabs the spotlight at just $13.99. From Moran, the Club 2-seater sofa at $16.99 is sophisticated, timeless value. The Monaco will grace the modern home with subtle chic, $16.99 for the 3-seater. And desirable, comfortable, contemporary, the Ashton 4-seater sofa with timber base, $17.99. There's so much more in store at Harvey Norman now.
Why only entertain in the lounge room? Get creative with Sharwood's and see where a little inspiration takes you. Sharwood's Indian, stirring stuff.
The drama, the devastation, gone. Now, the desecration of Pompeii.
Pompeii is falling to pieces.
And having babies.
A big healthy boy.
Nature or the knife, the mother of all battles. Sunday on 60 Minutes.
This is Nightline. A flooding disaster in the Caribbean is emerging as much worse than first thought. Rescuers in the Dominican Republic and Haiti, which share the same island, have discovered hundreds of bodies in the remote interior. It's now thought at least 2,000 people have been killed after waves of flash floods over the last 2 days. The water swept away villages and bridges. Some 20,000 people are homeless. Greek security forces continue to gear up for the Olympics, with commandos involved in maritime exercises. One scenario, terrorists entering Greece on refugee ships, meaning this boarding drill is getting daily practice. A multinational fleet of warships will protect Greek waterways during the Games. In Japan, precious little between life and death, just a nylon cord for 23-year-old Akiko Morito. She had crashed her paraglider into high-voltage power lines. With the electricity turned off, a chopper crewman managed to get a rescue belt around her and they were lowered to the ground. Akiko's ordeal lasted 3.5 hours. Now to finance, and the long-running takeover battle for the New South Wales TAB was settled today after Victoria's Tabcorp lifted its offer. Here's Ross Greenwood.
Tabcorp increased its bid by $50 million to $2.15 billion, and the Tab board gave up its resistance of the past few weeks. The combined group will include exclusive race betting in New South Wales and Victoria, the Sydney Star City and Gold Coast Jupiters and Townsville casinos, 18,000 poker machines on the east coast of Australia, and Keno operations in New South Wales, Victoria and Queensland. What's unknown, however, is the damage that's been done to the TAB because of its recent dispute with New South Wales Racing over its Sky Racing television channel. A rival is now bidding for those contracts. And while Tabcorp was having its bid accepted, Channel 9's owner, Publishing and Broadcasting Limited, was rejected by directors of Perth Casino Burswood. PBL, which owns Crown Entertainment Complex and Casino in Melbourne, bid $686 million cash for the Perth Casino. But Burswood's directors said this did not reflect the growth of the business, saying the profit in the first 10 months of this year had quadrupled. And after months of trouble, some relief for National Australia Bank shareholders, as Chief Executive John Stewart finally signed his contract. The contract for 3 years is for $2.23 million a year, with additional benefits if the bank performs. The certainty of his appointment pushed the bank's shares 20 cents higher today. But one dampener was a 2.5% fall in business spending in the past 3 months. The news brought suggestions of slower economic growth than forecast, and the expectation that interest rates will be left on hold in the coming months. On the markets, the All Ordinaries Index gained 18 points. Of the winners, Tabcorp jumped after its bid was accepted, and Queensland Unitab was also higher. GrainCorp jumped after a strong profit result, while Santos was also higher. On the downside, Woodside fell with oil prices. James Hardie and Cochlear both eased as the US dollar weakened, as did BHP Billiton and Amcor.